Hare Krishna everyone. So today we'll be covering Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 10th canto, chapter 20, the rainy season and autumn in Vṛndāvana. So let's start with the Kirtan. Hare Krishna. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Rama Rama Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayam Udiryet
Tato Jayamudiyate.
Shavtam Swakatha Krishna
Shratam Sakatha Krishna.
Punya Shamana Kirtanaha
Punya Shravana Kirtanam.
Hridayantastho Bhadrani
Vedantastu Bhadrani.
Vidunoti Suhasatam
Vidunati Suhatsatam.
Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu
Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavate Uttam Shloke
Bhagavate Uttam Shloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki.
Bhakti Nashtiki.
Hare Krishna. So today we'll be covering Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 10th canto, chapter 20, the rainy season and autumn in Vṛndāvana. So we'll be reading the first few verses, some translations, and then diving into the lessons as we go along. Hare Krishna. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 10th canto, chapter 20, verse 1. Shri Shuka Uvacha
Shri Shukuvacha.
Tayostadadbhutam karma
Tayostadadbhutam karma.
Davagnirmukshamatmanaha
Davagnir mokshamatmana.
Gopashyabhyaha samachakyuhu
Gopastribhya samachakshu.
Pralamba vadam evacha
Pralambavadamevacha. Shri Shukuvacha.
Shri Shuka Uvacha
Tayostadadbhutam karma.
Tayostadadbhutam karma
Davagnir mokshamatmana.
Davagnirmukshamatmanaha
Gopastribhya samachakshu.
Gopastribhyaha samachakshuhu
Pralambavadamevacha.
Pralamba vadhamevacha. Shri Shuka Uvacha.
Shri Shukuvacha.
Shri Shukdev Goswami said,
Sri Shukdev Goswami said,
Tayoho,
Tayo,
of the two of them,
of the two of them,
Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram,
Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram,
Tat,
Tat,
that,
that,
Adbhutam,
Adbhutam,
amazing,
amazing,
Karma,
Karma,
action,
action,
Dava Agneha,
Dava Agni,
from the forest fire,
from the forest fire,
Moksham,
Moksham,
the deliverance,
the deliverance,
Atmanaha,
Atmana,
of themselves, Gopaha,
Gopa,
the cowherd boys,
the cowherd boys,
Stribhyaha,
Sribhya,
to the ladies,
to the ladies,
Samachakyuhu,
Samachakyu,
they described in detail,
they described in detail,
Pralambavadaram,
Pralambavadam,
the killing of Pralambasur,
the killing of Pralambasur,
Eva,
Eva,
indeed,
indeed,
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Shukdev Goswami said, to the ladies of Vṛndāvana, the cowherd boys then related in full detail Krishna's and Balaram's wonderful activities of delivering them from the forest fire and killing the demon Pralamba. Hare Krishna. So as we go through from verse to verse, we will be covering some of the lessons. So it appears from this, and Acharyas explained that many times Kamsa would send 2 or 3 demons in a day, and Lord Krishna and Balaram, they would kill them. So in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, some of the prime, most prominent demons are identified here. And this is, in this pastime, are Naimittika, which is like, occasional pastimes, while they are eternal pastimes. Lord Krishna engaging, Lord Balaram engaging in Ashtakaliya Leela 24 hours a day. So in the spiritual Vrindavan, there is no night, right? As in material world, we see days and nights because we need sun to give us. So when the sun is not there, and then there is night. While in spiritual world, Lord Krishna's effulgence, the Brahman Jyoti, is so effulgent that it makes sure that everything is bright. And nobody feels tired. Can you imagine? And every step is a dance, and every word is a song. And everyone is lovingly exchanging, having this loving exchange with Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram all the time in Vrindavan. So how fortunate Vrindavan residents are, the residents of Vrindavan. So here, when the Gopa boys and the cowherd boys, they come back in the evening, they are narrating, they are describing in detail the wonderful activities of Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. They are saying how Lord Krishna saved them from the forest fire. And it is as if liberated. So, moksham is the word used. So as if they are liberated from the fire. And how Balaram killed the demon Pralambasura, who appeared with a gigantic body, as if that was a dark cloud carrying with the golden helmet and golden earrings. It appeared it had a golden lining. And Lord Balaram, being fair in complexion, appeared just like moon, appearing behind the cloud, a dark cloud. So that's how it appeared, and how Lord Balaram, just with one blow of the fist, was able to destroy this demon. And as we learned earlier, Pralambasura represents the lusty inclinations. The inclination to gain wealth, money, women, name, fame and glories. So when someone is running after all these things, they are constantly bewildered. And they go through the pravarga states. So we discovered that, we discussed that at length in the last 2 classes. So here they are describing in full detail, and all the residents of Vrindavan, all the elderly gopis and cowherd men, they were wondering as how amazing these 2 personalities are, who had appeared just like cowherd boys in the families of Yadus. And they are interacting on a daily basis with them as young Gopa boys, young cowherd boys, just simple cowherd boys. So with that attitude they are, wondering, and then they remember that Garg Muni had said that Krishna is as good as Narayan. and He will save us from all kind of calamities. So He saved all the cowherd boys from the forest fire, right? And yesterday we discussed, Shukdev Goswami said he swallowed, just like quickly. Jiva Goswami says he blew it out, just like right? And we know that as Lord Krishna, He could do anything. So we leave it to Acharyas as whether He blew it out or whether He swallowed. The important aspect is that He eradicated any suffering or any anxiety that was arising because of the forest fire. The scorching heat of the forest fire and the danger of the very livelihood, which were the cows and the cowherd boys. So their lives as well as their belongings, the cows, all of them were saved by Lord Krishna. Then, so as they heard, they were in surprise and they were thinking that these two must be demigods who have very nicely appeared in our families, right? So that's how they are thinking. And they are relishing these pastimes. So they kept repeating these pastimes for many, many times. And they're singing glories. So in Vṛndāvana, there is constant glories are being sung of Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. Verse 2, the elder cowherd men and ladies were amazed to hear this account and then concluded that Krishna and Balaram must be exalted demigods who had appeared in Vṛndāvana. And so this is how they were feeling very proud that they are under the shelter of these great personalities. And they are just appearing as simple cowherd boys, yet at the same time they have so much potency. Now in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna in the chapter where it's like chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge, in the beginning itself, that many, many births Lord Krishna and once again Arjuna has taken, his friend Arjuna, cousin Arjuna has taken, but Arjuna does not remember them, while Lord Krishna remembers them all. So even if they were demigods, but again this is showing the simplicity of the cowherd men. They are simple fellows, means they are very simple at heart, and saraltai is a virtue again, being very simple, simple living, high thinking. So they are following that, showing that by this behavior, that simply thinking that these are demigods. If they had the knowledge of the Vedantists and so forth, even the ABC, which is Bhagavad Gita, is the ABC in spiritual science, Srila Prabhupada said, then they would know that even the demigod, when they take birth as humans, they forget about their previous birth. They lose the potencies and all that information. So these people, they were so simple that they believed what Gargamuni said, and then they thought that because they were demigods, they had those potencies continuing in this life and they are able to save us from all kind of calamities. And then this was happening during the summer season. Now the summer season passes and the rainy season comes, right? With the beginning of rainy season, then the rainy season began, giving life and sustenance to all living beings. The sky began to rumble with thunder and lightning flashed on the horizon. So with the beginning of rainy season, again in India we used to refer it to as Chaturmasya. And then afterwards we see that it reduced in duration, and because of the behavior of the population and the administrators, it has become very unstable. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it doesn't rain. But in the old times, this is Vṛndāvana, where Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram are there. And they are having this loving exchange with the residents of Vṛndāvana. So everything is going on very nicely. Where we heard that even the summer felt like spring season. And even though the scorching heat was there, that was because of the forest fire. The thirst was there because of the pastime. So many things were there. Otherwise, everything was very nice. And now with the summer leaving, rainy season comes. And it is giving life and sustenance to all. So this is where it is showing that with the coming of rainy season, suddenly the environment changes around us. So nothing stays forever. Matra spashastu kanteya shitoshna sukhuddukhuda agama paina anityas tam titikshasva bharata. Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita that just like the summer season and winter season, they come and go. And they are anitya, they are temporary in nature. So they don't stay there for eternity, they come and go. Similarly, Happiness and distress come and go. So this is the lesson we learn, that the summer season goes and now the rainy season comes, and it is giving life. Why? What was happening in summer season, as we will hear. In summer season, sun is shining brightly and it's evaporating all this water. And all the water is getting evaporated, which means people are feeling more thirsty, people are feeling burnt, they don't want to stay out, the wind is very dry, people get loo, and so many factors. We have, especially living in India, we know that there's so many precautions you have to take when you go out in summer season. While with the coming of rainy season, everything is suddenly cooling down, right? The water is sprinkling everywhere with the rain, and as the clouds are pouring rain, there is water everywhere. So now there is a different kind of discomfort. Yet at the same time, what is discomfort for one kind of person is very jubilant moment for another person. So depending on different personalities. An example is given where during the rainy season, people who live in big cities, they stay indoors because they will get wet, right? They don't come out. But at the same time, with the coming of rainy season, the farmers, the agriculturists, they are jubilant because they are getting water for their crops. And now their crops will go very nicely. So they are waiting for this rain. They are actually praying for rain. While the people who are living, folks who are living in cities, they are actually not liking to, they don't want rain to come so often, because it stops them from enjoying their life sometimes, right? Devotees, they don't care whether it's rain or whether it is sunshine. Then, let me... The sky was then covered by dense blue clouds accompanied by lightning and thunder. Thus the sky and its natural illumination were covered in the same way that the spirit soul is covered by the three modes of material nature. Now one thing I want to kind of like bring your attention to, this particular chapter, sometimes people look at the title of the chapter and they think, oh, they're just talking about 2 seasons that appear in Vṛndāvana. No, actually, this lesson is filled with analogies after analogies, and Srila Prabhupada loved to give analogies to take the message across. And here, Acharyas explain, when we read this chapter, we come to know of so many analogies, and also we come to know that how does a muni, a sadhu, how does a saintly person looks at the weather, everything around them rather, and connects it to Lord Krishna. So that is being identified here. So all these analogies which are appearing in the form of the rainy season, the autumn season, when we will be discovering and discussing these analogies, and all these analogies are giving us great lessons. So what is happening with the coming of rainy season? The sky is covered with dense clouds. And what is happening? There is lightning happening, because the clouds, when they come together, the opposite charges, lightning occurs. And thunder is the sound that lightning produces. Thus the sky and its natural illumination were covered in the same way as the spirit soul is covered by the three modes of material nature. So just like the conditioned soul is covered by the three modes of material nature and forgets its true nature and thinks of itself, and associates with the body and thinks that I am this body instead of I am the spirit soul. Similarly, the sky is covered by the clouds. And what are they representing? The clouds, the thunder, the lightning, they are representing the three modes of material nature. Think of lightning. Lightning is very sharp, bright, glowing, right? So lightning is representing the mode of goodness, Sattva Guna. Passion is the thunder. It's all that sound and, like the rumbling of the clouds, that's is replicating or identifying the mode of passion. And the clouds, the dark clouds that's covering, is in the mode of ignorance. So they are analogically equivalent to these three modes of material nature. And then as a human being is covered just like that, the clouds are covering, and the lightning and thunder, they are covering the whole of sky. Text 5. With its rays, the sun had for 8 months drunk up the earth's wealth in the form of water. Now that the proper time has arrived, the sun began releasing this accumulated wealth. So here, the analogy is given in Krishna book by Srila Prabhupada is just like king collect taxes from the citizens, right? So the king goes to, and this is a tax season here. So everyone fills out, their tax forms and give taxes to the government. So this is the time government collects taxes. And with the coming of the new fiscal year, which is generally the October time, they start releasing these funds for various kind of welfare activities, various type of programs. So this is saying, just like sun had been shining brightly during the spring and summer season, especially in the summer season, it's taking away all the water from earth and absorbing it in the form of clouds. So, that way it's collecting everything. But with the coming of rainy season, it is ready to release it, this wealth, in the form of welfare activities and for the benefit of different programs or activities to benefit the citizens, like public work, sanitary work, and so forth. Making the roads, making sure that the environment is clean. And right now, as we can see with coronavirus pandemic spreading everywhere, governments are carrying out various kind of programs to support the citizens, making sure that life continues to go on stably and nicely. So that is going on. Flashing with lightning, great clouds were shaken and swept around by fierce winds. Just like merciful persons, the clouds gave their lives for the pleasure of this world. So it's such a beautiful analogy, right? So flashing with lightning, great clouds were shaken and swept away by fierce winds. So again, the clouds are being scattered all over the place and they are frivolously spending. So this is where, when the clouds, they pour rain, they don't pay attention whether they are pouring it to the place which needs rain versus whether they are pouring it to places that don't need rain. So if the rain is falling in the agriculture fields, then of course it's beneficial. But if it's falling on a rock and nothing is growing on the rock, or if it's falling in the sea and on the rivers, there is no benefit. Yet they are very nicely just pouring it. And there is an analogy given that just like some rich personality or some great personalities, they open up their treasury and try to do charity for the benefit of humanity. So those kind of aspects are there. Now this actually reminds me of one charitable scenario where in India, Richard Gere, he had given 50 million or 50 crores, a substantial amount of money to the hospital for AIDS research and for AIDS services. At the same time, Amrish Prabhu, Alfred Ford, he had given the same amount in charity to TOVP. So many of the news people, the press folks, they approached Amrish Prabhu and they asked, why would you give it to the temple? What is the benefit? And at that time, Amrish Prabhu gave an amazing answer that all these folks, all the news folks, all the press, they were all dumbfounded. Because basically his response was simply that when we give it to the temple, then basically it's causing, good activities. People are, becoming religious. People are getting spiritual knowledge, and with spiritual knowledge, there is no illicit sex. There is no, unregulated activities going on. So if people become clean inside, then there won't be any impurity in their dealings with others. People will be engaged in simple dealings. So there won't be any reason to have, AIDS and those kind of diseases. So if that is the case, then there won't be any use. So if the people won't have AIDS, then what will be the use of having these hospitals for AIDS treatment? So in reality, his contribution was greater because he is looking at prevention is better than cure. He is trying to remove the cause at its very root. instead of trying to provide a cure when it has already occurred, too late. So that's an important aspect. Hare Krishna. Oh, it was not Richard Gere, it was Bill Gates. He donated to India, sorry. Who had donated to India for the AIDS hospital, while Amrish Prabhu had donated to TOVP. Thank you for correcting. Hare Krishna. So here, an example is given when a rich person gives, opens the door and is helping, freely giving. Similarly, the clouds are freely giving the rain. And rainfall brings happiness to Mother Earth. So similarly, as the land is rejoicing, getting the rain back, getting its, strength back, because everything becomes strong with the rain. The plants grow, the grains grow, and all the vegetation, it grows. And also human beings, they really get a lot of benefit with the rain. So that's how it's actually beneficial to all. So similarly, distribution of money, even when some folks exhaust their whole treasury, just like that, the clouds are exhausting themselves by distributing water all over the surface of the globe. Now, another analogy given by Acharyas is, just like devotees, they go out preaching and giving their time and energy and their life in benefiting the society. So that is also a great example. Just like cloud is giving the rain to the needy, similarly, devotees are giving it, fully to everyone. And this reminds me of an incident where Srila Prabhupada, he was, after his lecture, he was approached by an elderly Indian gentleman, and he said, why do you discriminate between devotees, Mayavadis, non-devotees, and so forth? And Prabhupada said, I discriminate because it is very important. So he's showing as if he's discriminating, but in reality, he's saying, no matter what, I have to make sure that I'm having this dealing one-on-one with everyone at their level. So he's coming down from Uttam Adhikari position to Madhyam Adhikari position. And this is at the Madhyam Adhikari position that one differentiates between, devotees who are more advanced, devotees who are at the same level, devotees who are less. Yet at the same time, more compassionate towards the innocent. Yet at the same time, Srila Prabhupada said, I am distributing this knowledge freely. So when he heard this, then devotees heard him mumbling afterwards that he is giving everyone knowledge, Samadarshina. He is giving everyone Krishna consciousness. He is distributing it with open arm. And when someone is ready to take it, of course, he is paying extra attention. So that is a general attitude. If someone is ready to take something that you are giving, then you become happy that, okay, this person is sincere, and especially something good here that you are giving, like prasad. When someone is saying no to prasad, then you basically feel like, why would somebody say no to prasad, right? And so you feel little resistance from that person. Of course, you tend to, go and distribute to other people. But you are distributing to everyone. Somebody is saying no, it doesn't change your attitude towards that person, but your behavior changes a bit. That, let me not disturb this person, because if you say again to the same person, repeat yourself, it may upset the person. So we understand from that perspective, we don't want to upset anyone. We want to be friendly to everyone, and we want to encourage everyone to come by their own accord, by their own will. So even Krishna says that everyone should approach me, and as one approaches him, he rewards them accordingly. Ye yathamam prapadyante tam sadev bhajamyaham. As one approaches me, as one renders service to me, I reward them accordingly. So similarly, devotees, we also, when interacting, as one is open-minded and accepting Krishna consciousness, we become more friendly with them. If someone is not, so we leave them alone. And Prabhupada had very simple formula that we follow. If somebody, he used to get many VIP guests, and he would have conversations with them. And sometimes he would feel that they are not ready to accept what he's saying, and he is not really willing to hear, because he doesn't feel that what they're talking about is on a spiritual platform. They are mainly on the material platform. And so at that particular point, he would just ask the devotees to give them prasad. Why? Because prasad is amazing. Prasad also means mercy of the Lord. So by getting prasad, the strongest sense, it gets under control. Tongue. Ataha Shri Krishna namadi na bhave graham indriya sevon mukhe hi jivado swayam eva sprutyada. So, Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu explained very nicely that our senses are so dull that they cannot perceive the glories of the name, form, activities and pastimes of Lord Krishna. But if one engages, sevon mukhehi jivado, if one engages the tongue in the seva, sevon mukhehi jivado, soyam eva spurtya, Lord automatically manifests to them. Thus one becomes clean and one's senses are subdued and one can easily approach Lord because Lord reveals himself to such personalities, such living entities. So this is a very nice example we learn from the Acharyas, from Srila Prabhupada, that we practice when we go out on preaching. We take prasadam with us so that if we are at a traffic light and there are some folks, asking for food and all, we give them prasad. That way we are allowing them to have an opportunity to advance in Krishna consciousness. And why are we doing this? Because our acharyas say that we should distribute prasad very openly to the people, and if they are accepting it, it's for their own benefit. Knowingly, unknowingly, agya-sukriti happens. So again, unknowingly is agya-sukriti. They are performing devotional service by honoring prasadam. And thus they become purified and they have an opportunity and they have hope in this life. And what we can do is just to spread hope. Like even in this coronavirus time, all we can do is spread hope, share love, share devotion with others. So also there is a very nice example given when Maharaj Dashrath, the father of Lord Ramchandra, he used to fight with his enemies. It is said that he approached them just like a farmer approaches uprooting unnecessary plants and trees. So that way, to eradicate unwanted things, yet at the same time, when there was a need for charity, he used to distribute money exactly like a cloud distributes rain. So that's how the attitude of Kshatriyas has been, and attitudes of devotees have been in the same manner, to give in charity open-handedly. Now in the next verse, verse 7, Shukdev Goswami is describing to Parikshit Maharaj that the earth had been emaciated by the summer heat, but she became fully nourished again when moistened by the god of rain. Thus the earth was like a person whose body had been emaciated by austerities undergone for a material purpose, but who again becomes fully nourished when he achieves the fruit of those austerities. So who is the god of rain? Indradev, right? He is the king of the demigods, and he has, he sends rain, he sends clouds to pour rain at different places. So during the summer season, the earth has lost all its wealth, it is saying. So now it is getting fully nourished. And this is an analogy used, this particular example is used as an analogy of the seasons, used as an analogy to describe that how sometimes sages and devotees, they engage in austerities. And by doing austerities, the senses become weak. So the body becomes weak. You can even observe the bones, and they are constantly feeling this thirst and hunger on them. And however, when you read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you don't feel thirst and hunger. You feel completely absorbed and in bliss. So on Ekadashi, this is a very nice practice, and we do this all the time. Is we open Bhagavad Gita, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. So again, Bhagavad Gita is the ABC of spiritual science, a high school level study. And Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it composes the undergrad study. And Chaitanya Charitamrita is the postgraduate study. So based on where you are, you should pick up the scriptures and read them. And you would find that when you read them, the lessons you learn are so amazing that you forget about time, you forget about your thirst, you forget about your hunger, and you feel how great Lord is. You actually experience it when you read these scriptures, and how merciful the devotees are, and how wonderful, their association is. So here, it is identifying just like a person becomes very weak, but when the rain falls, earth becomes nicely nourished. Similarly, when the austerities are over, devotees feast, right? And you can also say that because of the power gained by the austerities, one makes a spiritual advancement, which is the true energy, which is the true, food for the soul, the true nourishment for the soul. So whether you look from the body perspective or whether you look from the soul perspective, one feels nourished. And especially the soul feels nourished when engaged in devotional service, so one feels really enlivened and continues to advance in devotional service. Now here, in the next verse, it's given, in the evening twilight during the rainy season, the darkness allowed the glowworms, but not the stars to shine forth. Just as in the age of Kali, the predominance of sinful activities allows atheistic doctrines to overshadow the true knowledge of the Vedas. So again, why are there no stars in the evening or when the nightfall? So at night, the cloud is covered. Even during the day, the clouds are covering the sky. So at night, when the clouds are covering the sky, even though there are stars, you cannot see them. So at that time, the glowworms, they are near the trees and in the fields, so they're glowing in the dark. And that's just like, glow at that particular time, so in the dark, but it is not comparable to the stars. And how it has been used as an analogy by Shukdev Goswami is that this is an analogy to identify that when the cloud, this Kali age, is appearing like a cloud, dark cloud, and all these clouds are covering the sky, covering the true knowledge, which is shining down as moon and the stars, all that is being covered. So in this Kali age, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, different doctrines, people try to manufacture different religions whimsically by speculation, by empirical theories and so forth. So they are creating all these new rules and rituals that they are continuing to create. And Srila Prabhupada was very strict. There was once in Texas at Gurukul, they started an event called Krishna Ball. And it was after a TV program that was testing the wits of the students. And it was General Electric College Ball. That was the TV program. So just to replicate that, what was happening was students would be asked questions. So there would be teams sitting in different desks. And they would be asked questions. And whoever presses the button first would be able to give the answer. And if the answer is correct, they get positive points. If the answer is incorrect, they get negative points. So when this was introduced at Gurukul, it led to a lot of turmoil among the students. The winners were showing off after they won, and the losers sometimes were crying, feeling upset, and all those negativity was so much visible. So there was a person, he thought about it and said, okay, let me get approval. And he was very hopeful that Srila Prabhupada would approve this. So he said, Srila Prabhupada, we are carrying out this, and the students are making effort to learn from Krishna book the various events that occur. So very intricate events in Krishna book, just like asking which demon was killed and what was and how that demon was killed, what kind of anartha that demon represented, all this kind of stuff. So he's basically giving, like in his letter, I'm paraphrasing, that he's trying to get permission from Srila Prabhupada that this should continue to carry on because it's making the students very smart. Srila Prabhupada's response came that, please stop this because this will be taxing to the brains of these young children. So this should be immediately stopped. And then the second letter he wrote to the GBC and to the principal at the Gurukul, saying that please stop this Krishna Ball event immediately. Nothing new should be introduced. Just follow the program I have already set. So sometimes we do see that new programs are being introduced, and we have to be very, very careful in engaging on those programs. Realize, is it going to really benefit us, or is it going to be taxing to us, to our soul and our spiritual advancement? So we have to be very, very careful. So similarly here it is said that the stars were covered. by the clouds, and all the luminaries in the clouds are covered, they are not visible, and different doctrines and different kind of rituals people are coming up with in this Kali age is overshadowing even the Vedic injunctions. And this continues on. In the next verse, Shukdev Goswami in verse 9 is saying, the frogs who had all along been lying silent suddenly began croaking when they heard the rumbling of the rain clouds, in the same way that Brahman students who perform their morning duties in silence begin reciting their lessons when called by their teacher. And this is very practical example given here. The analogy is referring to the Brahman students, the brahmacharis. So brahmacharis generally stay in Gurukula or in temples, and in the morning, because they are called by the teacher, so when they are being given the instructions by the spiritual master, and they are following the temple program, so as soon as there is a bell going on at 4 o'clock, they rush for the Mangalati. They get ready early on and they want to show up at Mangalati, they want to show up at different programs, they want to make sure that, so this is like chanting of their morning duties. So in the beginning stage, chanting of different mantras is there, and different prayers is there, and so that continues in the case of Brahmins. And we see that in current times in ISKCON, brahmacharis living in the ashram, they engage in Mangalati and the morning programs very enthusiastically with determination, and this is because they are under the guidance of a spiritual master. So this is showing as an analogy that during the rainy season the frogs start croaking, so they are making sound. Verse 10, with the advent of the rainy season, the insignificant streams which had become dry began to swell and then strayed from their proper courses, like the body, property and money of a man controlled by the urges of his senses. So this is where, when we are not able to control our senses, and when engaging in sense gratification, what happens? When one engages in sense gratification, they don't pay attention whether their body is getting destroyed, whether their property is getting destroyed, and the money is being spent frivolously. So this is where we learn that all these things that we have received are actually great gifts from the Lord. This is a great opportunity in the human form of life that we are able to engage in devotional service and have an opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead. But sometimes engaging in sense gratification, people just frivolously spend their body, all their belongings, as well as money, the property as well. So there is a very nice example. Srila Prabhupada used to tell about this analogy, that there is this beggar. This beggar is waiting to get a begging pot from a potter. So finally the potter gives him a begging pot, because he has, he feels merciful towards this beggar, so he gives him a wedding. And now the beggar is like, I have a begging pot, it's made of mud. So he is like throwing up in the air, right? And suddenly he is unable to catch it, and it falls on the ground and breaks away. So this is like, Lord has been very merciful, and just like the potter is giving this pot to the beggar so that he can use the begging pot to get money so that he can get nourishment, similarly Lord has been very merciful to give us this human form of life. And in this body we have the intelligence so that we can inquire about the essential aspects. So the first stage is Aham Brahmasmi, understanding that we are Brahman. So qualitatively we are same with the Lord, but quantitatively we are minuscule and He is infinite, right? Then another aspect is that we have this opportunity, then we should look around and try to understand, who am I? Why am I here? Why am I suffering? What are the causes of these miseries? What is my purpose in life? How can I get out of these miseries? What is the goal that I have to attain? And if I am in this body and the body is changing, but I know that I do not change, I still stay the same, then what is my true destination? Why am I at this place which is a place of misery? We should make all these inquiries and not engage in sense gratification, just like the beggar did. And he was engaged in showing off. So sometimes people are doing this sense gratification, and the body that you are trying to satisfy, sometimes is just because you are engaging in sense gratification. So when one engages that way, they are spending their life, their precious moments, the time and the opportunity, and just like the pot breaks, one dies eventually and then goes and again begging at the potter's place, looking for the next body. And so we are constantly caught up in the cycle of birth, death, old age, disease. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukkha, Doshanu, Dashanam. So these are the four kind of miseries. The pain of birth is excruciating. The pain and death is excruciating. And then the old age, you are living, yet at the same time you are no better than death, because every moment is painful. So as we grow old, we realize this. And then when you are in disease condition, you are constantly tormented. So again, all around the world, this pandemic of coronavirus is keeping everyone at home. Why? Because nobody wants to fall sick. That's another kind of misery. So that's another factor that we need to focus. So we should control the urge to engage in sense gratification and engage in rather devotional service enthusiastically. Text 11, Shukdev Goswami is talking about, the newly grown grass made the earth emerald green, and the Indragopa insects added a reddish hue, and white mushrooms added further color and circles of shade. Thus the earth appeared like a person who has suddenly become rich. So now, with the falling of rain, everything is becoming very nice. The whole earth has become green, the grass is everywhere, the greenery is spreading, and so it's looking like it has become emerald green. Yet at the same time, Gopa insects which have red hue, they are creating those red color combinations, and then the mushrooms and their shadows are creating the white color. So it appears like a great royal, parade is going on, and everything looks very colorful, as if a royal parade is displaying the military strength of a king. Now, with the wealth of grains, the fields give joy to the farmers, but those fields created remorse in the hearts of those who were too proud to engage in farming and who failed to understand how everything is under the control of the Supreme. Now here, the reference comes back to the farming, where the rain leads to the growth of grain, and so the fields are filled with joy. And who are they giving joy to? To the farmers who have sowed. In the paddy fields they have sowed rice and so many other grains. So now these grains are mature and they're growing very nicely. So the farmers are feeling very proud, and this is what I was talking about. But the people living in cities, they cannot relate to this pleasure, because it's very interesting nowadays when you ask the kids, when we can sometimes ask kids, where do you get milk? They say, oh, you go to the grocery store, you get a gallon of milk, and that's why they have no idea that milk comes from cows. They do not know that, so many of the kids. So we have to kind of bring them back to the nature. So sometimes we take trip to Gita Nagari and other places, and they are amazed to see, the cow is getting milked, and that's how the milk is coming. So it's very interesting to stay in touch with the nature. And even at home, you can look at YouTube videos to see how you can be, learn some lessons from the nature. And here this lesson is given, where people in large cities, they become miserable and disgusted in rain. And they do not understand that they need this grain, which only grows because of the rain. So the very cause that they are thinking is the cause of their misery, or at least it's mental misery, is not really misery. It's actually the cause of jubilation in the long run, because it's leading to the growth of grains. In the next verse, as all creatures of the land and water took advantage of the newly fallen rainwater, their forms became attractive and pleasing. Just as a devotee becomes beautiful by engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord. So again, everyone is taking advantage of the rainwater during the rainy season. And when there is rain happening, so again, everything becomes very nice, and everyone becomes very pleasing in their attitude, and so everyone is very attractive looking. So this is where it has been used an analogy to show that when a devotee engages in devotional service, the devotee becomes blissful. So this is how it is showing that just like a devotee becomes blissful, you can say, just like in rainy season, everyone, all living entities, they look very attractive and they become very pleasing in their behavior. Even the animals, they go back to where they were living, right? Because there is rain is falling, so everyone is going back. If lion lives in a cage, so he stays inside the cave, and the rain is pouring outside, doesn't want to come out. So everyone is very much in their residential quarters and habitats, and so it looks very attractive and pleasing. Just like a devotee becomes, attractive when engaging in devotional service and is filled with bliss. In the next verse, Shukdev Goswami is saying, where the rivers joined the ocean, it became agitated, its waves blown about by the wind, just like the mind of an immature yogi becomes agitated because he is still tainted by lust and attached to the objects of sense gratification. So now that the rain is happening, the rivers are overflowing, and when they merge into the ocean, at that time the ocean becomes agitated, just like when the mind of a lusty person, mind of an impure person when it's getting, because Adhira will stay stable and all these desires are coming to Adhira, a stable person, a Muni, a sage, will stay stable, even though as these various kind of desires come, and would very discriminatingly choose to engage in devotional service with determination, patience and enthusiasm. However, if one is impure in their mind, one is not a devotee of Lord, and one is a pseudo-devotee sometimes, then they would constantly be disturbed. They would constantly be feeling the turmoil, and they would be reacting instead of responding. And in that state, they would be agitated when, just like during the rainy season, as rivers, they go to the ocean, these overflowing rivers, and they agitate even the delta part of the ocean. So they overflow at times near the deltas. Just as devotees whose minds are absorbed in the personality of Godhead remain peaceful, even when attacked by all sorts of dangers, the mountains in the rainy season were not at all disturbed by the repeated striking of the rain-bearing clouds. So now this is showing the attitude of devotees. The devotees are like these mountains. They are constantly engaged in their devotional service, constantly engaged in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and not at all disturbed by all kind of, miseries coming in their way. And they are always remain peaceful, because you cannot avoid miseries. The miseries are a characteristic of this world. So whether you talk about three types of miseries, Adi-Daivik, Adi-Bhautik or Adhyatmik. Adi-Daivik is because of the natural disturbances like floods and famine and so forth. Adi-Bhautik is the one that is coming from other living entities, the miseries that's coming. And then the Adhyatmik is the miseries that are coming from one's own mind by speculation and meditating too much. And this is the one that we should be aware of, because it has a snowball effect. It can create mountain out of a mole, or Raika Pahad bana deta hai. That's how we refer to it. So just like the mountains, they are not at all disturbed, they stay, undisturbed. Just like that, the devotees whose minds are absorbed in the lotus feet, constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, serving Lord Krishna, just like that mind of constant service is not disturbed. A devotee is not disturbed, just like the mountains are not disturbed in the rainy season. And during the rainy season, the roads, not being cleansed, became covered with grass and debris, and were thus difficult to make out. These roads were like religious scriptures that Brahmanas no longer study, and that thus become corrupted and covered over with the passage of time. So here it's describing, once again, Shukdev Goswami is describing this, and Acharya is explained very nicely, that during the rainy season, just like the roads are constantly covered and you cannot find out, especially in villages, you have kacha rasta, right? When it's not blacktop roads, so it's just walkways kind of scenarios. So it gets easily covered by grass and debris, and so it is very difficult to know where the path is. Just like that, in the current times, when the scriptures are not being studied, and so the Brahmanas, when don't study the scriptures, the religious scriptures are hidden and the meaning stay hidden. And so over the passage of time, the information, the essence of the scripture is lost. So we have seen at young times, people would just recite the verses without even understanding what they mean. And once Srila Prabhupada, he went to Dallas Gurukul, and there when he came in, the students were reciting the whole of Bhagavad Gita, starting from the first verse, and they continued. And around halfway, Srila Prabhupada stopped and then asked, "What does that verse mean?" And the child who was in the front could not answer. So he said, "This is very nice that you are learning to recite Bhagavad Gita, but you should also know the meaning." Why should we know the meaning? Because it is a practical science. It's a science of self-realization. So we should know the meaning of the verses so we can follow them. We can, incorporate the teachings in our life. And that is realization. It is only knowledge till we are learning. But when we are living based on that knowledge, our life is changing, is getting transformed, then it is realization. So we are realizing that knowledge in our life. And that is the true benefit of reading scriptures. But if you don't scriptures for a long time, that information is lost. And Srila Prabhupada, that is the reason. He wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is, because a white lady asked him that, can you show me a translation of Bhagavad Gita? So he looked at various translations of Bhagavad Gita and he could not find a genuine translation of Bhagavad Gita. So he decided to write Bhagavad Gita as it is. And the first copy was lost because at that time he was married when he wrote the first translation, and his wife had given it in raddi, but in weight, by the weight of paper, to get tea, to buy tea. And so he was very upset. And second time he again translated it. So devoted he was. He never, was pushed down. He stood like that mountain who was completely undisturbed by the rains and the thundering of the clouds and the striking lightning throughout his life. So he was well determined. And so we learn from his example that we should never give up. We should continue to learn and grow. And so scriptures, they are covered over, the essence of the scripture is covered over with the passage of time. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is saying that this knowledge I had given to Vivaswan, who gave it to Manu, his son, Vavasvata Manu. And then it was given to Vavasvata's Manu. Vavasvata Manu passed it to his son Ikshvaku, and so the saintly kings, carried out their ruling in that way. But in the due course of time, this knowledge was lost. So when you don't study a scripture, when you don't practice it, then the knowledge is lost. Then Shukdev Goswami is saying, through the clouds of well-wishing friends of all living beings, the lightning, fickle in its affinities, move from one group of clouds to another, like lusty women, unfaithful even to virtuous men. So just like lightning sometimes appears in one group of clouds and then it appears in another group of clouds, this lightning going from one group of clouds to another group of clouds to another, constantly going around, is representing a lusty woman who even stays unfaithful to virtuous men. So this is where it is identified that even for qualified men we should be, and same is true with again, so in scriptures when we hear lusty women, so this is from the opposite sex perspective. So for men it is lusty women, and for women it is a lusty man who is going from one group to another, and that is something that we should save ourselves from. When the curved bow of Indra, the rainbow, appeared in the sky, which had the quality of thundering sound, it was unlike ordinary bows because it did not rest upon a string. Similarly, when the Supreme Lord appears in this world, which is the interaction of the material qualities, he is unlike ordinary persons because he remains free from all material qualities and independent of all material conditions. So now Sridhar Goswami is very nicely bringing it back to Lord Krishna. So we have been talking about materialists, non-devotees, devotees, sages and so forth, and now he is bringing Parikshit Maharaj to hear about Lord Krishna. Just like you have the rainbow, which is in the sky, sometimes it appears after the rain when the sun is shining. It doesn't have any string because the bow requires the string to get that bow shape, right? Similarly, Lord Krishna appears, but he is not bound by the three modes of material nature because Devi he Isha Gurmai Mam Maya Durateya. Lord Krishna says that this Mahamaya, the material energy, is my energy, my external energy, and it is Gurmai. It has the three modes of material nature. So she is constantly obeying the order of the Lord. Lord is not under the influence, rather he is the Lord. He transcends the three modes of material nature. So just like the rainbow does not have a string to give it that shape, similarly Lord Krishna is not under the influence of the three modes of material nature, unlike some of the theories of Mayavad philosophy. So during the rainy season, the moon was prevented from appearing directly by the covering of the clouds, which were themselves illuminated by the moon's rays. Similarly, the living being in material existence is prevented from appearing directly by the covering of the false ego, which is itself illuminated by the consciousness of the pure soul. So this is giving an example that at night it appears that the clouds, they're covering the moon, but when they're thin clouds, what happens is the clouds seems to show that they are glowing. While it is not that they are glowing, it is the moon's light that they are absorbing, and that is what is making them appear as if they are glowing. So similarly, when the conditioned soul is under the influence of the false ego, so the false ego and the intelligence associated with the false ego covers the soul, covers the nature of the soul, covers the qualities of the soul, covers the very blissful, full of knowledge and eternity, all these wonderful characteristics of the soul. In that state, it's associating with this body and thinking that I am this body. And when a person conditioned state is thinking, so that's just like being covered. While at the same time, what is the symptom of soul? Consciousness. So the body is showing consciousness, and that's the symbol of the soul, yet at the same time, one who is conditioned thinking I am this body is actually thinking that this consciousness and all these movements that I am able to do is because I am this body. So they are forgetting what's the real source of the consciousness. So this is an excellent analogy, and it also helps us relate to the very basic that the truth energy, which is soul, is the cause of consciousness, and that consciousness enables the body to move about and engage in different kind of activities. And so when we understand this, we can understand that looking at the characteristic of the soul, Jivera Sarupaya Krishnera Nityadas, we can easily take to Krishna consciousness and engage in devotional service. The peacocks became festive and cried out a joyful greeting when they saw the clouds arrive, just as people distressed in household life feel pleasure when the pure devotees of the infallible Supreme Lord visit them. So just like peacocks, they become jubilant, they start dancing when they see raining cloud. Similarly, people who are distressed in household life, they become jubilant. And Srila Prabhupada used to give a very nice example that all these boys and girls, when he came to America and also many other places, he saw that they were not very attractive, rather they were in miserable conditions, yet at the same time they became jubilant and they have been dancing and singing ever since they took to Krishna consciousness. So when they see the devotee of the Lord, the one who is very dear to the Lord, and they engage by looking at this devotee, engage in devotional service by following this devotee, then they become blissful, they become jubilant just like the peacocks. So like that, all the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, he is referring over there in his writing, have been dancing and singing jubilantly. The trees had grown thin and dry, but after they drank the newly fallen rainwater through their feet, their various bodily features blossomed. Similarly, one whose body has grown thin and weak from austerity again exhibits his healthy bodily features upon enjoying the material objects gained through that austerity. So it's again coming back to the example earlier Shukdev Goswami gave, that with austerity body becomes weak, but the trees are able to drink the water, rainwater through their roots, and so they're getting strength and they're getting more and more green. So similarly, one becomes very strong, and also when one performs great austerities, one gets the results. So with that results, one advances very nicely. The cranes continued dwelling on the shores of the lakes, although the shores were agitated during the rainy season, just as materialistic persons with contaminated minds always remain at home despite the many disturbances there. So this is where it is identified that just like a materialistic man is constantly engaged in endeavoring and working very hard to sustain in living and maintaining his family members, making sure that they get the shelter, the food, the security, the basic necessities, eat, sleep, mate, defend. And Srila Prabhupada was very strong. He would sometimes say that even animals have these facilities. So why should we waste our time in just looking at these facilities? Rather, we should rise above, transcend the three modes of material nature and engage in devotional service. So by direct engagement in spiritual activities, in Krishna consciousness, we can quickly advance higher, while a materialistic person who does not take to Krishna consciousness is constantly agitated, and with contaminated minds they stay at home and they are not able to give up their home, and despite the various disturbances at home. So that's like the state of a crane. When Indra sent forth his rains, the flood waters broke through the irrigation dikes in the agricultural fields, just as in the Kali Yuga. The false theories break down the boundaries of Vedic injunctions. So this is very instructive, that just like Indra sends forth the rains and sometimes the water breaks down the irrigation dikes, the boundaries that have been created to move the water in a given direction, but it spills all over because having over flooded that particular channel. So similarly in Kali Yuga, in the current age, the theistic false theories and philosophies, they break down the boundaries of Vedic injunction, and they are causing havoc to current society. So sometimes people, they get so much engaged and absorbed in rituals that they forget the very essence, the very purpose behind those rituals. And sometimes, and Srila Prabhupada writes in Bhagavad Gita that men with poor fund of knowledge, who are less intelligent, they take to demigod worship. So he's giving the example that when you water the root of a tree, then whole of the tree, the whole of plant is nicely nourished. Similarly, when you engage in devotional service, serving Lord Krishna, then all these demigods are but the part of his universal form. So they are all very nicely pleased. So it's very important for us to understand that if we are trying to please a demigod, yes, we may get results very quickly, yet at the same time we may not be able to come out of these clutches of Maya, the three modes of material nature. But when we engage in serving Lord Krishna, then we are able to come out of the clutches of Maya. So there is an extra benediction there, because we are tormented by a specific desire, and this desire is causing us to stay in this material world. But when we serve Lord Krishna, at that time he may give us the result, plus he takes away the desire which is causing us to stay in this prison cell of this material world. However, in this age, many kind of theories they come up, many philosophies they come up, and they are causing havoc to human society. So we should be very careful in our dealings. And it's not that we have to go out and challenge them. We have to just focus on preaching and continue to study and engage in devotee association. And Lord Krishna has a bigger plan. Things will happen in due course of time. The clouds, impelled by the winds, release their nectarian water for the benefit of all living entities, just as kings instructed by their Brahmanas priests dispense charity to the citizens. So again it is coming back, he's reminding Parikshit Maharaj that as kings they distribute charity openly. Similarly this is happening. So he's giving another analogy with respect to the clouds, which are releasing their nectarian water, but under the influence of winds. So it is the winds that's causing it. So they have been impelled by the winds. So similarly, the kings have advisors, and these advisors should be Brahmanas. The advisors should be Brahmanas, highly, And Brahmanas are known to be the spiritual masters of human society. So when we have bona fide Brahmanas who are in the disciplic successions, Vaishnavas, as priests and advisors to the king, then the king, just like cloud is impelled by the wind, the Brahmanas would, provide proper instructions to the administrators so that they can engage in different charitable activities for the benefit of the society under proper guidance. When the Vrindavan forest had thus become resplendent, filled with ripe dates and jambu fruits, Lord Krishna, surrounded by his cows and cowherd boyfriends and accompanied by Sri Balaram, entered that forest to enjoy. So everything became jubilant, and such nice, setting of Vrindavan. Lord Krishna was going every day with his cowherd boyfriends as well as Sri Balaramji to herd the cows in the morning and then bring them back in the evening in such a nice atmosphere. Yet at the same time, the characteristic is given that not everything is moving as fast as it was moving in summer. The cows had to move slowly because of their weighty milk bags, but they quickly ran to the Supreme Personality of Godhead as soon as he called them, their affection for him causing their udders to become wet. So because everyone becomes healthy, so similarly cows, their udders are filled with milk. Because cows, as we heard, likes to also, after some initial time, they start to learn to eat grass. So the milk is meant for human consumption. So all these cows have udders filled with milk, but when Lord Krishna would call them, they would come running to Lord Krishna, and because of their loving affection, the response to Lord Krishna, when they ran, the udders would become wet because the milk would start to flow. And the Lord saw the joyful aborigine girls in the forest, the trees dripping sweet sap, and the mountain waterfalls, whose resounding indicated that there were caves nearby. So there is, resounding is happening, and so the caves are there. And during the rainy time, the cowherd boys and Lord Krishna, they would enter the caves and they would play different kind of games, just as is given in the next verse. When it rained, the Lord would sometimes enter a cave or the hollow of a tree to play and to eat roots and fruits. So this is what is explained in the rainy time, that Lord Krishna would either use the caves or use the shade of a tree, a really thick tree like the banyan tree we heard about, the Kadamba tree. So Lord Krishna would take his meal of boiled rice and yogurt sent from home in the company of Lord Sankarshan and the cowherd boys who regularly ate with him. They would all sit down to eat on a large stone near the water. So because they were eating, so they would gather together and they would use the stones and the leaves at times as plates, and they would eat in the same manner as we heard just before Brahma Vimohan Leela, as how it would appear Lord would be sitting in the center like the whirl of a lotus flower, and all these cowherd boys would be sitting all around him, just like the petals of a lotus flower. Lord Krishna watched the contented bulls, calves and cows sitting on the green grass and grazing with closed eyes. And he saw that the cows were tired from the burden of their heavy milk bags. Thus observing the beauty and opulence of Vrindavan's rainy season, a perennial source of great happiness, the Lord offered all respect to that season, which was expanded from his own internal potency. So even Lord Krishna, he is appreciating his internal potency, seeing everyone completely in bliss, completely fearless, and having loving exchanges with Lord Krishna. While Lord Balaram and Lord Keshav were thus dwelling in Vrindavan, the fall season arrived, when the sky is cloudless, the water clear, and the wind gentle. So this is where the autumn season is appearing, and because this also has some amazing analogies hidden in there, we would like to continue this text 32 onward in the next class. So please join us so that we can cover as how autumn season brings so many amazing realizations and what we can learn from autumn season. And especially in Vrindavan, Lord Krishna is engaging in these pastimes with all his devotees. So this is where we will end today. Gantha Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Koti Vaishnava ki jai. And now for the protection of all our friends and families in this time where everyone is experiencing lockdown, let's sing the Narasimha prayers. Hare Krishna. Namaste Narasimhaya, Namaste Narasimhaya, Prahlad Lad Daine, Prahlad Lad Daine, Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha, Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha, Shilatanka Nakhalaye, Shilatanka Nakhalaye, Ito Nasingha Bharato Nasingha, Ito Nasingha Bharato Nasingha, Yato Yato Yami Tato Nasingha, Yato Yato Yami Tato Nasingha, Vahe Nasingha Hridaye Nasingha, Vahe Nasingha Hridaye Nasingha, Narasingha Madim Sharanam Prapadye, Narasingha Madim Sharanam Prapadye, Tav Kar Kamalavare Nakham Adbhuta Singham, Dalita Hiranyakashipu, Tanu Bhringam, Keshavaditya Narahari Rupa, Jai Jagdish Hare, Jaya Jagadish Hare, Jaya Jagadish Hare, Tav Kar Kamalavare Nakham Adbhuta Singham, Dalita Hiranyakashipu, Tanu Bhringam, Keshavaditya Narahari Rupa, Jaya Jagdish Hare, Jaya Jagadish Hare, Jaya Jagadish Hare, Jaya Narsingha Dev, 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 Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. So until next time, please stay safe, sound and continue to engage in devotional service. Hope to see you again. Hare Krishna.